My guest today is Dr. LeTa Jussila. LeTa is a doctor of acupuncture and Oriental medicine and a national wellness expert. She helps individuals achieve and maintain their healthcare goals efficiently. Dr. LeTa is known for her therapeutic cannabinoid recommendations and her education on topics like microdosing. She has an in-person practice in beautiful Santa Cruz, California, and as well as an online medical practice. Best of all, LeTa is a good friend, a colleague, and we share many years of Chinese medicine and more. So I am so grateful and so happy that you said yes to being on the podcast, LeTa.
Oh my gosh, so happy to be having this conversation with you, Kit. Thank you.
Oh, and you are actually a return guest. You've been on the other version of the podcast. Today, though, we are talking as, yes, Chinese medicine practitioners, but more importantly, midlife women and more. So I would first love to have you just share like a short version of your story of,
Mm.
kind of like the growing up years. And I don't even really know why, what brought you into Chinese medicine. Um,
Mm.
so please
Oh,
share.
I guess maybe we didn't get into that last time.
Or if we did, you have to remind me. My memory.
No, 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 no. It's all good. In a nutshell, I was working in San Francisco. So right out of college, I was lucky enough to work for Levi Strauss, the jean company. And somewhat superficial, advertising to sell jeans. And one day, my sister called and said that three different doctors at three different hospitals in Boston gave her 3 to 6 months to live. And I don't know about you, but I didn't know anything about medicine at this point. I mean, right out of college, and I just couldn't get my head around it, honestly, Kit, that these esteemed doctors at these esteemed institutions would give someone such a finite sentence just from numbers on a piece of paper. I mean, I get like the imaging is amazing and the blood work and whatnot, but in my scrappy, younger, naive, egotistical self, I'm like, not my family, not my sister. And I'm really grateful for that ignorance. Because in hindsight, I would phrase it from what I know now is that we are spiritual, mental, and emotional. We're not just physical. And what Western does is brilliantly is we're able to look at like the physical. How is the physical expressing itself?
Mhm.
And that's beautiful, amazing emergency medicine. Um, but I just couldn't get my head around, well, what about all these other things? And so fast forward, I went home, I moved home in like 3 days and I looked into herbal medicine. I learned macrobiotic cooking, Misho Kushi. So I started, buying all these roots and boiling them, from the local nursery. And I found this energy healer. So we did energy medicine. And so basically we did energy medicine, food, and herbal medicine. And she did some energy treatments like Reiki, on top of doing chemo and radiation um, at the hospital. And, you know, out of the 40 women, so I don't know how they do it now, but they take a certain amount of women and they always are doing trials, of course, and they want to give you as much as you can take with the chemo and radiation, of course, especially with someone with such a finite diagnosis. And the doctors were just not sure what's happening. She was the only one that lived from the 40,
Mm.
and she didn't have any side effects from the chemo and radiation. So she went back to school. She is a nurse. I mean, happily married, healthy and whatnot now. So it got me thinking that if I can make a commitment from this experience, it doesn't matter what I do, right? Because sometimes it doesn't matter what you do, it's who you are in the process. You can be a loving, kind human that works at McDonald's, right? It's often not the tasks that's our legacy that we leave behind. It's who we are. And so I said to myself, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life because I don't want to go back to corporate America, but I want to be a stand to remind people that don't ever let anyone tell you something about yourself that you don't already know and feel. But that's also the caveat that we have to stay connected to ourselves. So we do know how we feel. And could I remind people that the power that made the body can heal the body and that we have so much power? And when we get a diagnosis, when we actually get to a point of that, I feel like most of us are already disconnected. And when we do get a diagnosis, it is scary, it is personal. And, you know, can we look at this paradigm that's giving us the diagnosis and understand the lens from which they're giving us that statement? And a diagnosis to me is a set of symptoms that we're expressing that we can bring into one word. But if we can remind ourselves, instead of being tied to that word, and just remind ourselves that our body is expressing these series of symptoms, but I'm constantly changing and evolving and healing. So, all that to say is, I wanted to become a Western MD because I learned very young, coming over from the Vietnam War and understanding how the world works. Is that people listen to doctors with white coats and their statures and licenses, and they listen to authors. There's certain ways in which the world works, and so I was for certain I was just going to become an MD. And then when I started interviewing MDs, they said they were getting so much pressure from the health insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies. And this was 1997. So they deterred me from going to medical school. They said, if you really want to help people, become a naturopath, become an osteopath, become a chiropractor, or become a Chinese doctor. And when I looked at all of them, to be honest with you, I felt like Chinese medicine was such a full system. I said, I want to become that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So many questions. Are you ready for them? Well, first of all, thank you for that. That's a powerful story. Not, well, I look up to you so much, Lita, that I was going to say not that dissimilar to how I went into Chinese medicine, but so we can get into that later. But my question is, what was it about the the diagnosis of your sister that you you went the other way, like, or you looked beyond what the white coat people were saying and what the diagnosis was? Because for most people, I would say at least 90% of the world would take that and go with that and not, or maybe they'll go down the path of, okay, what does that look like? What does that mean? Right? But you kind of went, oh no, we're going to do more around this. What was that, like an internal voice or just a knowing? What was that?
You know, it had to have been like looking back, it had to have been a knowing. So I couldn't get my head around. So she had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, but it metastasized to almost every organ, her
Hmm.
vital organs. They said it was 3, but going to 6 organs.
Hmm.
So what I and I looked up where the lymphatic system was, and with like the lymph nodes, right?
Hmm.
And I was thinking, we were sitting on the carpet one night and we were just talking. And she started to share with my mother and I about an incident that happened when she was 13. And she was raped. I believe she was raped or molested or something by a neighborhood kid.
Hmm.
And so in some ways the story doesn't matter, right? What matters is that she wasn't self-expressed. She
Hmm.
shoved it. I mean, we live in a society we don't learn anything about our bodies. We don't learn how to communicate. We don't even learn how to balance a checkbook. We don't learn about anything actually functional.
Hmm.
But that's another topic. But I realized I started to think that that moment, I remember it so clearly, Kit, because I was thinking, okay, you had this trauma that you never talked about. And it got me thinking. It got me thinking that, you know, we have things that happen in our life because we go through life at a pace where we're not connected to ourselves. And in fact, the body just wants to house our soul.
Mm,
And we don't even feel like we belong in these bodies because we're so fighting with our bodies. We either don't like the way we look, we don't like our weight. And, I believe that autoimmune, it's like this part of my body is fighting with this part of my body. It's like we don't even have personal reconciliation with the way we look, the way we talk, so I feel like no wonder why we're not at home at these bodies. And if the body doesn't, it just wants to house us. And if we're not even wanting to be in this body, the body's going to break down. So I just, for my limited assessment back in 97, it was this idea of like she's not connected it, she's not in this body. She's wreaking havoc with this body. And then, all these other things can happen. I said, no wonder why her body's breaking down,
mm,
you know? And I believe that you know, I'm fully on board as an integrative doctor. I mean, even though yes, you and I are doctors of Chinese medicine, but I have to keep my patients in relationship with Western, because when we're often hurt or we feel like it's a system and we feel like a number, we don't want to be in relationship. And it's very similar to micro macro when people look different or we don't understand a different culture. We don't know how to be in relationship. And I think most of us are missing the mark. It doesn't matter if we're talking about religion or politics or other countries or our bodies, is can we be more curious? Can we create a language or ask questions, not to agree, but to stay in the conversation, to
mhm,
surrender what we were learned,
mhm,
surrender what we think we know, and be more open in our hearts and be more open to, okay, I know that what I know for sure is that there's change. And if I
mhm,
know that for sure, then I know that my body will change every hour, every moment. And it depends on me on that discernment of what can I control and change and what can I can't. If
mhm,
we as a society in United States of America, they recommend us going to our doctor once a year.
mhm,
We get our blood work once a year. But what I know from Chinese medicine is that we change what we eat every season. We change our self-care practices. We change how we move our body. So if that's the case, it makes more sense to be changing what we're doing and thinking and feeling and eating every 2 to 3 months.
yeah,
So if we just look at the basics,
mhm,
it's going to inform us on how we can live in alignment, not just with ourselves and with this body,
mhm,
but with what's most important. And I think that the pandemic hopefully ushered in this urgency to who am I? Where can I give my gifts? Who is important to me? But I think also now that life is in session again, I think that we are still missing the mark.
mm. Ooh, I like what you just said, life in session. Life is back in session. You know what just occurred to me, Lita, as you were saying, such great things. Um, the last piece was how it's just it's a fact that the body, the cells are always changing, you know? The climate outside, it kind of doesn't matter where you live, there's always change. And yet, what we don't change is our thinking and our beliefs and our lifestyle. We kind of have this same thing, same beliefs, same habits over a long period of time. And no wonder we are confused as to why whatever we're doing is not working anymore because we're not going along with what's happening inside and outside of us that's constantly changing. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and
Oh,
I think what's challenging is that, and again, this isn't learned. It's not taught, sorry. So it can be very confusing to the field, right? So when we want something to be different about ourselves, we
mhm,
tend to not know how to navigate because our culture in this country is built upon small business health professionals. And
Mhm.
because these health professionals and health providers have to run businesses, which mean emails and marketing and billing, if you jump to another country, you can get cryotherapy under your insurance. You can, so unfortunately, you have people that are designing business models. There's a lot of trust issues. There's a lot of, it's just a loaded, so what I would say is in this moment is that, you know, intermittent fasting might be amazing for someone, or juice fasting, or doing gallbladder flushes, right? Colon cleanses. Like there's all these things that are available to us. But as an individual that's not in the health field, people are listening to podcasts, or trying a fad diet, or buying supplements from an Instagram ad, and forgetting that, we are sacred beings. Even though I might share genetics with my brother and sister, we have different sleep, different digestion problems, different traumas. So why would we be think that we could do the same thing, especially the same diet, the same CrossFit exercises,
Mhm.
right? And if we don't move into this new, it's not even new, but this new way of being, which is, how does my body want to move?
Mhm.
Right? Instead of just feeling like I need to hit the treadmill, or like,
Mhm.
what food can I eat right now as an act of love? Can I prepare this meal that's going to nourish me?
Mm.
So I just want to I want to invite people to engage and be curious and tune in more, because everything is taking our attention out.
Yep.
Okay? The most sacred thing we can protect is our time and our attention.
Mhm. And the
And
body.
so, yes, and if we just give out, right?
Mhm.
We think we justify, I worked all day for corporate America. I deserve to sit on the couch and have a glass of wine and watch Netflix. But it's all out.
Mhm.
We wonder why we don't feel good. Wonder why we're not genuinely happy. We wonder why we're not having this authentic, intimate relationships that we crave, or the
Yeah.
sex life we want. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We're shutting down most of the time, aren't we? And living north of the neckline. Somebody was telling
Yeah.
saying that once. It's like, ooh, that is so true that most of our energies is spent from the mind outward,
Yeah.
not, I mean, we can use the mind to do more internal work and more meditative self-reflection and listening to the body. Okay, now we need to definitely turn all of that into this time, this chapter that you and I are living in, right? I'm in my late 40s. I believe you're a couple of years older than I am.
I'm gonna be 52 in another month or so. Yeah.
So personally, how has that been for you? Just, I know I've talked to a few people, either they just, crossed the 50 line or they're
Mhm,
approaching, and there seems
mhm.
to be, some excitement around that number.
Um, it it's interesting because I definitely notice. Um, so when took my first pathology class at Five Branches, I realized two things. I realized that my personality is creating my pathology, like my
Mm,
lifestyle is creating my pathology,
mm,
and understanding that every pathology has a personality.
mm,
So I was thinking, okay, well, what kind of patients do I want to work with? What kind of personality? What kind of pathology? But bringing it home to me, kid, it's been hard. It's been a little challenging. Like, okay, I noticed my lifestyle, and it's not perfect, but it is what it is, and I own it. It's my lifestyle. But noticing how it shows up uniquely in expressing in the physical for me has been not that fun.
mm,
And so it's, yeah, but it's also, I'm grateful because I'm listening to her, I'm listening to the body, and I'm taking action.
mm,
So it's like the one thing I would say to anyone listening is, you know, if you can stay in touch with your body and listen to how she's expressing, the whispers, or maybe it's a little bit louder now, whatever the symptom is,
mhm,
and then what is the best approach? It gets scary when you have something. So I have a blocked tear duct,
Mm.
Okay. So it just means on one side, my tears, it's being blocked. Okay. And so if I have too much heat or inflammation in my body, it'll show up as like this yellow sticky mucus, which I don't
Mm.
currently have, but it'll also show up as excess tearing. So Western medicine, so long story short, I had to have 5 appointments with Kaiser, my insurance company, to even get to the surgeon.
Mm.
And the only solution for a blocked tear duct, if any of you know this or don't know this, they drill a hole through your nose, put a tube, and just like plumbing, they just redirect your tears through your nose.
Oh,
I know. And it's like anesthesia, like, I'm like, doesn't sound like a good plan. And I asked him,
so yeah, wait, hold on.
I said,
So back to the tear duct though,
yeah,
there's no actually unblocking the actual tear duct? No.
that's what they're saying. No, they don't do that.
Okay.
So this guy is booked. Okay. There's a whole eye hospital through Kaiser now. And I said to him, I said, what is the cause? And he just said to me, blowing out candles too hard.
Oh.
Didn't take me seriously. It was really disheartening.
Mm.
So I will tell you this is that I went down the rabbit hole because I'm a health practitioner.
Hmm.
And I can't imagine, they said hundreds of thousands of surgeries a year, just this one city in this one state. I mean, I can even imagine. And this is people's choice,
Hmm.
right? And what I know now is it's inflammation, it's liver, it's congested third pathway of liver. Like I just learned so much more.
Hmm.
And there is a treatment that you can do for it, and I just started treatment, 3 weeks ago,
Hmm.
and I'm really excited about it. It's pouring hot ghee or warm ghee in my eyeballs. It's cod liver oil in my eyes. It's like it's a specific, like, massage and, like so I'm so grateful because
Yeah.
I was able to find a clinical trial and able to order the herbs so and it makes sense now, understanding my constitution and my lifestyle and why this just happens to be the Achilles heel,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
For someone else with these set of symptoms and my constitution, it might show up as like a combination of night, blurry vision, and high cholesterol or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the symptoms aren't fun, but
Hmm.
I think instead of being victim, if we can, just be honest with ourselves and say, okay, am I moving my body? Am I getting enough vegetables? Like, what do we know for sure?
Hmm.
And where can I course correct? And then is there a health practitioner that I trust that knows me or that I want to start a relationship with that will really be able to look at my options? Because I went down the Western route.
Hmm.
I looked at Chinese medicine, I didn't see anything,
Hmm.
and then I ended up looking into Ayurveda, and
Hmm.
they have a solution. So, yeah, I'm really grateful for that, but I think no matter what midlife, most of us are expressing some sort of hormonal or menopause stuff. That's
Hmm.
not me particularly. I'm not having any of those signs or symptoms. I'm still menstruating. There's nothing really out of the ordinary for me yet there. So, but I know for a lot of women there are. So I think, you know, something is going to be happening with the body,
Hmm.
right? Some people are getting stiffness, so but it's listening. And then the medicine is, are you going to not just listen, but take action?
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think what's really frustrating, but also fascinating about this time, especially for women, is just what you said, is it shows us so clearly that we are unique individuals with unique DNA, unique lifestyles, unique accumulation of different things. So, yes, there's like a long list of different symptoms and patterns that a woman would go through,
Yeah.
but it's unpredictable as to what you will get, what I will get, and other people. And why not yeah, why not learn those things about ourselves so that we get a chance to be like the CEO of this chapter, you
Yeah.
know, and not completely rely on medications per se or operations that we might not need. And yeah, Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, I mean, the traditional medicines have been around way longer than the Western conventional medicine that we have today. And these patterns have been around too, you know, the
Yeah.
symptoms that everybody
Yeah.
has. You know, there've been billions of people who've gone through this before we
Mhm.
have. And having said all that, it is still very frustrating because we didn't have this before. You know, I personally am dealing with joint stuff.
Mm.
You know,
Okay.
it's definitely stiffness and
Mhm.
some pain, and
Mhm.
there are activities that I'm not sure if I could do as well anymore. So I'm listening, and uh there's a part of me that's resistant to doing anything about it because I think a part of me is rebelling the fact that it's here to stay, you know? 10, 20 years ago, these symptoms would come and go, right? But now they're here, and little changes make huge differences both ways, right? So the other day, not the other day, the last month or so, I gave myself permission to experiment with going vegan because my cholesterol has been on the high end the last 3 to 4 years.
Oh.
And if you look at all the numbers, it wasn't alarming, but I still didn't like it. You know, I didn't like it to be north of 250, right?
Right.
It's like that's not an okay number. So I gave myself permission to get rid of most of the animal products,
Yeah.
just really for 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
I had a blood test scheduled, you know, so it was
Yeah.
one of those like, all right, let's just do it. Let's just you know what to do. Let's just do it, you know. And other people have done this, and it seems to work for them. So I was pretty, I was excited to see that the if it would make a difference, and it did. Right, it was
Mm.
40, 50 points less than a year ago when I had
Wow.
my cholesterol checked. So anyway, just to say, absolutely, changes create changes. And you know, sometimes big and sometimes small, but if it's not going to cause any harm, I think it's worth a try. And you know, that's a kind of a small example. You know, I know people are dealing with a lot more um uh difficult and you know challenges around menopause and stuff. But
Yeah.
back to you and the challenges, you know, the eye being one. What about psycho emotional, mental? How has
Mhm.
that been for you to be 50 and beyond?
I'm grateful for the wisdom, the consciousness, the self-awareness. I
Hmm.
mean, I think, there's cause and effect, however we look at it.
Hmm.
And I think that, you know, I'm reminded of so much lately, Kit, that, environment is the first thing that, well, I think that maybe we were taught in school, but, you could think of it as feng shui, but your environment informs so much. So we could look at the weather. So like, being in a damp climate versus a dry climate, the house we live in, maybe the season we're in, but like spring, summer, but also the season we're in individually.
Hmm.
So I feel like environment, I've been really attuned to that. And so it affects me emotionally and mentally and spiritually. And so I moved recently because I realized I need to put myself in an environment where I feel completely nourished and my soul can rest.
Hmm.
And I know not everybody can just up and move,
Hmm.
but there is something to be said that there are things we cannot measure. And we,
Mhm.
and the things we can't measure sometimes are the most important. Like, how much love do we have? How much happiness do we have? And environment, is a big deal, I think. I mean, feng shui, is a big deal. And we are in relationship with everything in our home, whether it's decluttering or we have too much clutter. So by changing my environment, and then that also is the people that you see, right? So it's anything around you. That is a big piece to where I have people start. I mean, it can change everything. Why do we go on vacation in beautiful places? We want to surround ourselves in this environment. So I always say to everybody, if you're struggling with, mental, emotional issues or stuff or stress or whatnot, first is let's look at your environment. And the
Mm.
second thing is what part of you is constantly naming what's happening. It's kind of like the narrator, right? Like in
Mhm.
movies, how there's that narrator. It's
Mhm.
like we're constantly narrating, but we don't realize, oh, it's from this hurt place
Mm.
or this part of me is narrating this. And it can be very harmful. And I think that none of us humans don't like change,
Mhm.
but we have to change. It's evolve or die. And so what I did for myself is, I experienced depression for the first time in my life when I got car accident. I almost died.
Mm.
In fact, I probably should have died. Um, and I didn't. I was in bed for about 5 months and I didn't work for almost 13 months. I'm on month 5 of working now. And I'll tell you, it was my first time experiencing low mood, and I didn't realize I was actually depressed because I
Mm.
wasn't physically moving either.
Mhm.
And so I realized, oh, it's my environment, and it's realizing that, Jing or creative energy comes up and out. So if we're not creatively expressing ourselves, we're not moving our body. And for some people, like in wheelchairs or we roll an ankle, we can't move our bodies. And that's when something like acupuncture or herbal medicine is great because then it can move the energy.
Mhm.
But for me, I realized go back to the basics. If I can't change my environment on where I live, I can at least go out to nature. I can at least move my body. And then when I couldn't move my body, I could at least take deep breaths. I could at least, how can I express myself? I still could paint or play the violin or, like I could still do things. And so I think that most of us, when we feel stuck, we forget the things we actually know to do.
Mhm.
That will then be the next right step, another little step, the next right step. And I think we give up too easily. I think we give up our power. We become victims because we just give up our hands. And I just encourage everybody that, yeah, there's going to be moments where, yeah, give up your hands and be a victim, but set an alarm clock.
Right, because too long, then it's too long.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like, this is your life.
Yeah.
No one else's.
Yeah.
In that body, in those thoughts and those feelings, it's really an inside job.
Mhm.
Everybody's got shit.
Yeah.
Everybody. I
Yeah.
mean, by the end of our life, everybody would have experienced bitter, resentment, ecstasy, luck. I mean, all of them.
Mhm.
I think that by the time we're midlife, we know the grass is not greener. I mean, even if part of our brain thinks more
Mhm.
money's better, or look at them, they're in love, they have it easy. It's like we just don't know. And could we come to the table, come to being in the presence of every human with this humility that
Mhm.
that that have a shared experience because we're human,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing all of that, and I'm sorry that you had such a horrible
Mm.
accident.
You
I'm
know?
grateful you're here, Lita. So, that's that. But
Yeah,
what I
thank you.
was thinking about when you're talking about moving the environment and people kind of comes down to how everything is energy. And,
Yeah.
just like magnets or batteries and things like that, sometimes it doesn't work, right? Sometimes the energies that we are surrounded by or attracted to or not attracted to creates the emotions inside of us, emotions, energy, and motion. So,
Yes.
of course, if the the place that you're in, that you're living in, is no longer helping you vibrate positively, you're not going to feel good. And sometimes it's indescribable, you know, you can try to explain to people, but yeah, if your makeup, your energy itself doesn't correlate or doesn't jive with something or someone, and if you're listening, then you get a chance to make different options. And then what else was I going to say after your um yeah, say I guess it's back to energy still. And I'm so grateful that we have Chinese medicine as our background, because that is the foundation of Chinese medicine, right? Is to keep our chi, our energy, our vitality in motion. Even if it looks like stillness, there's
Hmm.
still movement, and we
Hmm.
want that movement to nourish, because without the movement, we're not alive, or we're not optimal.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Well, and yeah, I think that like, one of the things with midlife is like cognitive decline. I mean, it shows up as foggy brain or memory or, like there's a lot around brain or mental health at this point, especially around midlife. But if we just realize with neuroplasticity,
mm,
trying new things, right?
yes,
So wearing different clothes, listening to different music, trying new foods, trying new activities, right?
yes,
Like just try new things. Like in any way you can. That's what I always prescribe to patients. I say, because jazz is different than blues versus rock or, a kombucha, it's just anything you can,
yeah,
I mean, I started dancing because I've never taken a dance class. I'm 50 something years old and I just have a big story about dance and certain people dance. And then I was like, no. And I've been getting into dancing. And so it's just been amazing. There's so many dance classes you can take. So
yeah,
it's like, what can you do in the season you're in to move some energy to engage and
yeah.
participate in our life? And if each of us are participating fully in our
Hmm.
lives, then oh my God, what a beautiful
Hmm.
way to coexist with each other when we are alive and participating. It's like that's the world I want to live in.
Yeah, well, we can create that world, right? And I must have been reading your brainwave over here, because I just decided that before I'm 50, which
Mm,
is in about a year and a half, I want to
okay.
do 50 new things.
Oh, nice.
Yes, I might
Love it.
have I might have about 10 already done,
Okay.
but I am not the most adventurous person, Lita.
Okay. Okay.
I
All
haven't
right.
done a lot of things that most people that most people have, so it won't be that hard.
Hmm.
But what I am realizing is, with every new activity, or big or small, I feel more alive,
Yeah.
especially when it's a little challenging or a lot challenging, you
Mhm.
know? Because I don't know if this is true, but I feel like new brain cells have to be created or woken up or
Yeah.
something. That neuroplasticity is actively happening in my brain. And it's so uncomfortable,
Yes.
right? Like
Oh my
I'm
God.
taking Japanese right now, and you would think that I know another Asian language fluently. You would think like, oh, it's another Asian language. No, it's
Mm.
very different. So challenging, but I leave that place feeling, yeah, feeling alive, but also like a kid again, like
Mhm.
back to that early formative years of like, whoa, I just learned something that I didn't know at all before.
Mhm. One of the things I offer patients is this invitation to sit in the darkness in stillness for 2 hours. And then I
Oh,
say, then come talk to me.
Okay.
And
Tell
it's
me
and it
more.
well, because people, I'm sure this is your experience, but people are always asking me like off the cuff advice,
Yep.
you know, are you taking new patients or, and I go, well, if I may, would you be willing to go home and sit for 2 hours in the dark and see what comes up and then come sit with me?
Mm.
Because I have a feeling that most people don't know what to do with themselves. Like we don't know what arises. If they don't want to do that exercise, I have them write a letter with pen and paper. Because letter writing, especially to ourself, it's like you're talking to your own soul and it comes out very differently when you're writing.
Mm.
And you can really get to distilling to the heart of the matter through paper and pen to really drop in with yourself and your soul. And because oftentimes we'll go and pay other people to learn about ourselves when we don't
Yep.
have to, you know? One of the Part of these homework assignments I give people is from this program I developed in 2009 called Start With Yourself. And it was a 12-week program. And we included over 200 local health and fitness businesses. And you tried new things every day for 90 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So aerial arts to working on your money to like trying a different communication with, sexuality week and like, so, for you, I would say, it's always like beginner's mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if we don't check even our assumptions, we don't even know what we're working with. And
Yeah.
I think that I look at expectations and assumptions. Because anytime I approach something, even a patient or even myself, what are my assumptions right now? And then what are my expectations?
Mm.
Because if most of us can look at those two things, it will inform us the lens, the playing field. And this is where I think things go awry with all relationships. It could even just be with food, could be with your partner, could be with your colleague. So I would invite everybody, and this does relate to health. I know you and I are talking about a lot of different things, but I think midlife, we're at this place where, we know who we are in some sense. We know, that life is going to end in this body. We have been grateful. Maybe we've been lucky, fortunate. We know that we want to be grateful every day for the present moment. We still have goals, probably travel goals or financial goals. Um, but what I realize is that our body is always in the physical moment, but oftentimes our mind is in the past or in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And what I know is that it doesn't really work that way. Marketing says mind, body, spirit connection. It's mind, body, spirit continuum. We are one unit.
Mm-hmm.
And when, we're seeing it with the body, like with ALS, the brain is sharp, but the body's breaking down. Right. So if you look at what the common disease states and how people decline in health and how they transition out of the physical, the mind and body, unfortunately, is separate.
Mm-hmm.
So I would invite everybody to, how can I be one? How can I be one soul spirited energetic being? That my mind, body, spirit, emotional, social, sexual, financial, all of it is me. How
Mm.
I express, what I pay for, how do I pay for? Am I angry when I pay for something? Like how you are moving through space and time. Are you deeply connected and oneness within your cells? Because if we can't be at oneness with ourselves, how can we think we can be oneness with others?
Yeah.
I really.
Well, you make it sound super easy, but I know it's not. It takes practice and patience. I am stuck with your homework of sitting in the dark for 2 hours. Uh, I mean, can we start with 30 minutes?
Yes. The only reason I say 2 hours is
Mhm.
because every 2 hours your chi is in a different meridian and you have different resources.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I would love it to be from 3 to 5 a.m. if I were to choose, because that's the lung time. That's when you're connected, the portals open, the chakra, crown chakra, the lung, you take in breath, the spirit. So I always prescribe 3 to 5, but even 4 to 5.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. And just
4:30,
be
4:30 to 5.
and be still, like in a meditative state, or what's the best
Yeah, yeah, I mean, just sit in a comfortable spot,
mm-hmm.
close your eyes, be
Mm-hmm.
comfortable,
Yeah.
and you can just ask yourself, I am available to listen. I want to be deeply connected to my innermost self, and I'm available and open to hearing whatever you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Yeah.
And then that's when we get to come see you after we've done that practice.
And then maybe go to paper and pen.
Yep.
Write yourself a letter. I
Mm-hmm.
always have every patient write themselves a forgiveness letter
I
because we're
love
holding
that.
so much. And if
Yeah.
you haven't written a forgiveness letter to the main people, like our mother, our father, because we hold so much and
Mm-hmm.
we're meant to be light and love,
Yeah.
but we're not light. We're not light, you know? There's two kinds of light in a dragon year.
Mm.
And we all, we're all wanting to illuminate, right? So each of us are trying to have just this light, this illumination from our heart or spirit, right? So we are all on that path. And then there's military illumination, right? Military with the fire and the bombs, and that they think that's their way,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, but I feel like the way is for each of us to find our own divinity, our own path to enlightenment individually. And it's just, it's just a better path in my sense. And I think that, you know, asking ourselves the questions of who am I? Why am I here? Like out of this 129,000 year cycle we're in, I'm here for 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, whether you believe in reincarnation or not, it doesn't matter. You're here now and you have this one life, this one body. Have you made peace with this body?
Mm.
Do you know why you were born looking like this with this sound of your sonic blueprint in your voice and these skill sets? And, are you curious? Right. And then why were you given these gifts? Why are you
Mhm.
given these natural resources? Why are you given this lens to look through life and communicate in this way using these words? And what light lays on your heart? Like I'm building a company right now, and when I'm interviewing everyone, I say, I just want to know what you're willing to die for. And if that's too strong of a statement, then what keeps you up at night, or what's on your heart?
Mm.
For me, when I was younger, it was domestic violence. It's moved to human trafficking.
Mm.
It's moved to slavery. People, not everybody are free. So, like it changes a little bit for me, but it's like if we were all to check in with ourselves around really what civic responsibilities we have, then we find community. And I know that change happens in small groups, in homes,
100%. Yeah.
having conversations, just like in the 60s with the conscious raising groups. And I believe that it's always a good place to start. But you can't find those groups
Mm-hmm.
unless you know who you are and what your gifts are and where you're needed. And we get energy from serving. We
Mm-hmm.
get energy from giving. We get energy from belonging. And if we can find places to belong in community, we will know that our life was meant something.
Right. And then it's, back to energy. It's like when we find the like energy, right? Energy that helps us feel better and more energized, and we're doing that for other people as well, then that's alignment. That's
That's right.
vitality, and that's health. I know you and I were talking a
Yeah,
little earlier about what is health actually, and it changes, but that is one definition of health, is to feel alive, I would say.
absolutely. I think that I know the human brain is wired to protect,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of our nervous systems are overwhacked, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there is no bear, but our nervous system thinks there is a bear. And so, what I would say to anyone listening is that can we find the point of connection instead of looking for how we're different?
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. And the second thing is let's relate it to ourselves. Can we notice what's working instead of always looking at what's not working and what's wrong, what we think is wrong with
Mm.
ourselves? Because we stay in that battle. We stay in always trying to improve. And there are seasons, there absolutely are seasons to improve. But as much as we want summer after winter, there's
Mm-hmm.
spring. So if we can understand that there are natural laws, the way that energy works, natural cycles and rhythms, so we don't go against our nature, then
Yeah.
we will realize that we are coming home to belonging to ourselves. And when we can belong to ourselves, we have a chance
Mm.
for health and vitality.
Oh, I can't end better than that. Thank you so much for
Mhm.
you, for being you. Before I
Mm.
let you go though,
Mm.
couple things. One is I ask most of my guests this. One is, what are you excited about right now?
Okay, the one thing that's coming to my head is, and I hope I people receive this in the best way possible, is that I have been helping people heal from alcoholism and drinking less alcohol.
Hmm.
And I've been really successful at it. I'm thinking of having it be part of my business. I haven't really come out doing that because it's kind of loaded with every corner there's a brewery. And I know people like their beer, and it's not that I don't. I love my wine and beer, but it's being in right relationship. We don't know our relationship with anything or anyone until we take a break from it.
Oh, so true.
And with sugar, with wheat and gluten and dairy and meat and all the things, cannabis, right? All the things that we do. And can we just be in our power and say, I'm going to have a glass of wine? Or for people that love cannabis, whatever it is, but you're not subconsciously, unconsciously overeating or over drinking and all these things, right? It's like, no, just stay awake, stay in
Yeah.
your power, use the earthly, engage, imbibe in the earthly pleasures like chocolate or whatnot. So, this company I'm building was first designed for mental health coming out of the pandemic.
Hmm.
And yeah, we're launching in about 2 months, and I'm super excited about it. More to come on that. But I realized that when each of us looks at our life, I started to look at, you and I talked about, we joked that, Mercury's in retrograde. I started to look at the relationships I've had, and I never understood that no one in my family is an alcoholic. I'm so grateful. My parents, my brother and sister, we all still to this day have a very healthy, very small relationship with alcohol. But
Hmm.
I have had my three main relationships, primary partners have been with alcoholics.
Mm.
And I was like, why is that? And I realized, oh, I now have experience to really know the disease, the inner
Hmm.
workings of it,
Hmm.
and medically, I know actually how to help people heal.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling called to be out and take up more space around that.
Well, it's so important. And, for everyone really to have a healthy relationship with alcohol, especially in these menopausal years. Alcohol is a huge uh what should we call it? For some people, it's their frenemy, right? Because they don't feel like they can get through a day or a night without it to relax. But it also creates a lot of an anatomical symptoms, right? Worse night sweats and oh, so many things. So yeah,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
because of that, I think um it's wise to question and to be, yeah, to be discerning about our relationship with it. So thank you for the work. I know you're going
Mm.
to be helping so many people. And
Yeah.
lastly, I know people would love to learn more about you and your practice and
Mm.
your wisdom. How can they do that?
Well, the best thing is to subscribe to my email list. Sometimes I do once a month. I try to do once a week.
Mhm.
And it's doctor spelled out and then LETA.com, drleta.com. And that's the best way. If anyone's moved to come, I say, come sit with me, on Zoom in
Yeah.
person. And that's how I work. I have people come sit with me and we have a conversation. And from that
Mm.
conversation, I help people get in right relationship.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
feel like I just spent that hour with you. So thank you so much.
Mm,
And I will put all those things in the show notes so that people can come and find you. And I'm so glad that you're well and healthy, Lita.
Thank you,
And who
Kit.
cares about the tear duct? No, no, I'm joking. I do hope that what you're doing is going to be helpful because
Thank you.
it's a pain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
It will resolve itself
it's
through
a
this treatment.
nuisance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. But thank you. And it is such a pleasure always to have a conversation with you. Thank you for inviting me. I really, really love spending time with you.
Likewise. And I look forward to seeing you in Santa Cruz, hopefully sometime soon.
I love it. Yes, come visit.
I will. Thanks,
Okay.
Lita.